Before we begin today's story, take a moment to subscribe to the channel if you enjoy emotionally driven stories that stay with you long after the video ends. These stories aren't loud or rushed. They quietly settle into your heart. Some lessons don't shout. They whisper. Sometimes it's not what we do that breaks everything. It's what we say when we feel unseen. I never meant for it to go that far. Not with him. Not with anyone. His name was Daniel. He wasn't just my husband's closest friend. He was part of our everyday life. Dinners together. Weekend laughs. Shared memories that felt harmless. And maybe that's how it begins. Not with desire. Not with intention. But with comfort. My husband, Michael, had been working late for months. Business trips. Late calls. Constant pressure. I understood it. At least I told myself I did. But understanding something doesn't make loneliness disappear. Daniel noticed the small things. Did you eat today? You sound tired, are you okay? Simple words. But when you've been living in silence, even simple words feel like warmth. One evening, Michael left for another work trip. It was raining hard when Daniel stopped by to drop off some files. It was supposed to be quick. But the rain didn't stop. So he stayed. We talked about work at first. Then about life. Then about things I hadn't said out loud in years. I told him I felt invisible. I told him I missed feeling important to someone. And he didn't interrupt. He didn't judge. He just listened. Then he said something that changed everything. You deserve to be seen. 5 words. That's all it took. Nothing physical happened. No lines were visibly crossed. But something shifted inside me. And deep down, I knew I had already stepped into dangerous territory. I should have stopped. I should have pulled back. But instead, I kept talking. After that night, nothing looked different. But everything felt different. Daniel didn't say anything inappropriate. He didn't push boundaries. And maybe that's why it became harder to notice when the boundaries started moving on their own. Our conversations continued. At first it was casual. A quick message. A check-in. Hope your day's going better. Did you get some rest? Then it slowly turned into late-night calls. The kind where silence feels comfortable. The kind where you don't realize how much time has passed. Michael was still traveling. Still busy. And I kept telling myself, it's just talking. But deep down I knew it wasn't just that anymore. I started waiting for Daniel's messages. Checking my phone more often than I should. Smiling at notifications I shouldn't have needed. There was no confession of love. No dramatic moment. Just emotional closeness growing in the space my marriage had left empty. One night, Daniel said softly, I don't like seeing you this unhappy. And something inside me tightened. Because he saw it. He saw what I had tried to hide. What I had never clearly said to my own husband. That's when guilt started creeping in. I would sit beside Michael during dinner, nodding at his stories about work, while my mind replayed conversations from the night before. I wasn't physically anywhere else. But emotionally, I was drifting. And the scariest part wasn't that I cared about Daniel. It was that I liked the version of myself I was when I talked to him. Lighter, heard, important. One evening, Michael looked at me and asked, Are we okay? The question caught me off guard. I smiled automatically. Of course. But my heart knew the truth. We weren't okay. Because even though nothing visible had happened, something invisible already had. And I didn't know how to undo it. The turning point didn't come with shouting. It came with a door opening. One evening, I was on the phone with Daniel. It wasn't anything dramatic. We were just talking about our day. But my voice was softer than it should have been. I didn't hear the front door unlock. Michael had come home early. I looked up, and there he was, standing in the living room. His eyes met mine. Not angry. Just confused. Who's that? He asked calmly. My heart started racing. Just Daniel. I replied too quickly. That word, just suddenly felt heavy. Michael nodded slowly, but something had changed in his expression. Not suspicion. Not yet. But awareness. That night, dinner was quiet. He watched me the way you watch something fragile. Unsure if it's already broken. Before bed, he finally asked, Are you sure there's nothing you want to tell me? The question felt like a mirror. And for the first time, I saw what I had done. Not with my hands, but with my heart. Tears filled my eyes, but the words wouldn't come out. I didn't know how to explain something that technically hadn't happened. Because how do you confess an emotional shift? How do you admit that someone else made you feel seen? I'm just overwhelmed. It wasn't a lie, but it wasn't the full truth either. That night, I barely slept. I stared at the ceiling replaying everything. The rain, the words, the late-night calls. And I realized something terrifying. I hadn't crossed a visible line, but I had built a quiet bridge. And if I didn't tear it down now, I might lose the one person who had trusted me with his whole heart. The next morning, I texted Daniel. We need to stop. My hands shook as I pressed send. A few minutes later he replied. I understand. No drama. No begging. Just understanding. And somehow, that hurt more than anything else. Because in that moment I knew. This wasn't love. It was loneliness looking for comfort in the wrong place. And now, I had to decide if my marriage was worth fighting for, before silence turned into something permanent. After I sent that message, something inside me felt empty. Not because I had lost Daniel, but because I had finally understood how close I came to losing everything else. For 2 days, I avoided the conversation I knew I needed to have. Michael wasn't cold. He wasn't distant. He was trying. And that somehow made it harder. On the third night, I couldn't carry it anymore. I need to tell you something, I said quietly. He looked at me, not defensive, not angry, just waiting. My voice trembled as I explained. Not every detail, but enough. I told him I had been feeling alone. I told him I let someone else become the person I opened up to. I told him nothing physical happened. But emotionally, I had drifted. Silence filled the room. Not explosive silence. The kind that hurts more because it's controlled. Michael looked down at his hands for a long time. Then he said something I will never forget. I wish you told me before you told him. That sentence broke me. Because he was right. I had searched for comfort outside before fighting for it inside my own marriage. He didn't yell. He didn't walk away. He just asked one question. Do you still want this? Us. And for the first time in months, my answer came without hesitation. Yes. Not because it was easy, but because I realized something important. Daniel wasn't the love of my life. He was a reflection of what I felt was missing. And missing things can be rebuilt, if both people are willing. We started therapy the following week. The sessions were uncomfortable, honest, raw. We talked about communication, about emotional absence, about how silence can slowly build walls without anyone noticing. It wasn't magical. Trust didn't instantly return, but effort did. And sometimes, effort is where love begins again. Weeks turned into months. We started having real conversations, not just about schedules and bills, but about fears, needs, and loneliness. The kind of conversations I should have had from the beginning. One night, as we sat quietly together, Michael reached for my hand. Not dramatically, not as a grand gesture,